start thinking about what we do and say, because we're going to have to answer for it someday. And so for those adults that got on the public app today and blamed the baby boomers and the elders and called them a traitor, I think you're going to have to do some soul searching, and you're going to have to answer to it one day. How you choose to have your come to Jesus moment and ask for redemption, that's between you and God, or whoever you believe in or not believe in. That's between you and whoever else that you put any trust or faith into. But you're going to have to answer for it. I personally am going to have to answer for everything that I have ever said or done. I constantly remind myself of that. I constantly remind myself. I say, Aquilin, you are going to have to answer for everything that you have ever said or done every single day that you was on this earth. So it would be advisable for us as adults to remind each other of that. See, I think the bottom line is a lot of folks, they are waking up and realizing that things are really bad right now. Things are really bad. Things are really bad. And things are going to stay bad if you don't know your numbers. Out of all the hours that I was listening to that space, nobody once mentioned that you need to gather your number count. Whether that's your family members, knowing your number count for just your immediate family or your community. But no, folks are too busy not wanting to call each other out because they like this person. They don't like that person. They like this person. They don't like that person. They ain't gonna call out the person they like. If they hear the person that they like say something that needs to be corrected, they're not gonna say anything. They're gonna sit there silently and not say one word because they like that person. They like that person. They rub elbows with that person. That person is their friend. Folks was DJ L Beats were talking about name names. He didn't have a problem naming who he didn't have a problem giving his names, but when other persons gave their names, he had pushback. He didn't like the names that they said out of their mouth, but I guess he wanted folks to like the names that he said out of his mouth. So if you're going to open a Twitter space, and you're going to want input, you're going to have to have the backbone to listen to something that someone is going to say that you're not going to like. Don't even bother to open the space if you can't take it, because you're perpetrating a fraud. And I witnessed a fraud today. I witnessed a fraud most of the time when these Twitter spaces are open. Adults open Twitter spaces. They are hosts. They are co-hosts and co-hosts, and folks take the time to come into the space and try to join into the conversation and raise their hand and want to come up and speak, and they are downright disrespected. The disruptor and the host, they pretty much monopolized the conversation. Like it was just like folks didn't even have their hand up. It's so rude. It's so rude and disrespectful. I understand that the host and the co-host should be able to speak anytime they want, with the understanding that they're being unpolite to the persons who have raised their hand. But they don't care about it. A lot of times they don't even care about it. I'd be sitting there looking at my phone screen and 30 minutes go by, an hour go by, and folks still got their hand up. And the host and the co-host, then they come off of their microphone after they don't talk to their pleasure. Then they call on their little favorites. I just sit there looking at the phone. I just sit there looking at the phone. And they call on their little friends, their little cliques before all those other persons been up there with their hand up. They're gonna pick and choose who they're gonna call on first if that person's their friend. If that person is somebody that they rub elbows with, that's part of their clique. That's the root of the problem. But folks don't want to call that out. They don't want to change that character flaws. They don't want to correct that character flaws. So they get on a public app and perpetrate a fraud. Perpetrate a fraud and be so quick to point the finger at someone else. So quick, so easy, so quick, so easy to point the finger at someone else. In the past 2 years of my life, I have watched persons open spaces on Clubhouse, Fanbase, and Twitterland and show favoritism. Blatant favoritism. But if you listen to them, they have the moral character high ground. They have the moral character high ground. They need to take a hard look in that mirror. They really need to take a hard look in that mirror. Because in my past 2 years, over 2 years of observing these spaces on Clubhouse, Fanbase, and Twitterland, I have seen a ton of blatant favoritism. A blatant favoritism. If you have that little teeny character flaws, you can't even make it to first base. Because you have not taken a hard look at yourself. And a lot of you are exhibiting that trait. Quite a bit of you are exhibiting that trait. And you know who you are. You know who you are. You know who you are. You have been a host, a co-host, and you have done it. You know who you are. You have been a host of a space, a co-host, a host of a space, a co-host of a space, and you have shown blatant favoritism. Ain't no denying it, because I have observed it over and over and over and over and over again. Just looking at my phone, just holding my phone in my hand and looking at the phone screen, I am observing blatant favoritism and total disrespect to those other persons who had their hand up. Just total disrespect, total rudeness, total disrespect. Those individuals, unless you want an echo chamber of just your little cliques, your little cliques that's part of your little circle, your little inner circle, or your little cliques. If you just want to open a space and only those persons come in, and you can just have to wrestle between your little small brain as to what favoritism you're going to show to those persons that you consider in your clique, then it's a waste of time for those other persons to come in there. If you're going to be rude and disrespectful to them, it really is a downright crime. It's downright pitiful and rude and disrespectful. Because those persons, they did not have to decide to come into your space and be disrespected that way. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to take that time off of their life to come into your space and support it and be a part of the conversation. They didn't have to do that. So why should they have to be treated that way? Anybody have the answer? Do anyone have the answer? Because not one individual human being should have to go through that. Whether you agree with what that person is saying out their mouth or you do. But most of you cannot listen to opposing perspectives. You cannot, you don't have the backbone to do it. And every person in that audience is bearing witness that you do not have the backbone to listen to an opposing perspective. You immediately hit that mute button. Yeah, that's a handicap. It's a downright handicap. Most of you constantly hit that mute button. If you're not hitting that mute button, you're constantly interrupting the person. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question right in the middle of someone trying to talk. But you don't do that with your favoritisms. You don't do that with your little friends that you rub elbows with. That's another thing I observe. Y'all don't come off of that microphone and ask your friends, cut in the middle and ask your friends questions. You let them complete their thoughts. You need to be careful. You need to be careful when you're on a public app. You don't know who is in the audience observing your character flaws. You never know. You never know who is in the audience observing. I will try to be conscious of that every time I open a space, every time I enter a space. I will try to be conscious to remind myself of that. Because you don't know who is in that audience. What person is in that audience making an evaluation about your character? You never know. On even any given day, somebody could be in that audience. Somebody could be on that stage evaluating your character. It's just a natural human thing. It's a natural human thing that all of us do. But some of you folks, with these character flaws, y'all flock together. You can all, any person with a brain in their head, they can sit back and just make evaluation. Birds of a feather will flock together, and a lot of you have flocked together. Y'all, many of you have flocked together. You have flocked together. You'll flock together. You'll flock together. No matter what space you go into, you have flocked together. My mom told me that when I was real young. My mom said to me, she said, birds of a feather will flock together. You know who you are. You have been a host, a co-host, and you have done it. You know who you are. You have been a host of a space, a co-host, a host of a space, a co-host of a space, and you have shown blatant favoritism. Ain't no denying it, because I have observed it over and over and over and over and over again. Just looking at my phone, just holding my phone in my hand and looking at the phone screen, I am observing blatant favoritism and total disrespect to those other persons who had their hand up. That's total disrespect, total rudeness, total disrespect. That those individuals, unless you want an echo chamber of just your little cliques, your little cliques that's part of your little circle, your little inner circle, or your little cliques. If you just want to open a space and only those persons come in, and you can just have to wrestle between your little small brain as to what favoritism you're going to show to those persons that you consider in your clique, then it's a waste of time for those other persons to come in there. If you're going to be rude and disrespectful to them, it really is a downright crime It's downright pitiful and rude and disrespectful. Because those persons, they did not have to decide to come into your space and be disrespected that way. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to take that time off of their life to come into your space and support it and be a part of the conversation. They didn't have to do that. So why should they have to be treated that way? Anybody have the answer? Do anyone have the answer? Because not one individual human being should have to go through that. Whether you agree with what that person's saying out their mouth or you do. But most of you cannot listen to opposing perspectives. You don't have the backbone to do it. And every person in that audience is bearing witness that you do not have the backbone to listen to an opposing perspective. You immediately hit that mute button. Yeah, that's a handicap. It's a downright handicap. Most of you constantly hit that mute button. If you're not hitting that mute button, you're constantly interrupting the person. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question right in the middle of someone trying to talk. But you don't do that with your favoritisms. You don't do that with your little friends that you rub elbows with. That's another thing I observe. Y'all don't come off of that microphone and ask your friends, cut in the middle and ask your friends questions. You let them complete their thoughts. You need to be careful. You need to be careful when you're on a public app. You don't know who is in the audience observing your character flaws. You never know. You never know who is in the audience observing. I would try to be conscious of that every time I open a space, every time I enter a space. I would try to be conscious to remind myself of that. Because you don't know who is in that audience. What person is in that audience making an evaluation about your character? You never know. On even any given day, somebody could be in that audience. Somebody could be on that stage evaluating your character. It's just a natural human thing. It's a natural human thing that all of us do. But some of you folks, with these character flaws, y'all flock together. You can all, any person with a brain in their head, they can sit back and just make evaluation. Birds of a feather will flock together, and a lot of you have flocked together. Many of you have flocked together. You have flocked together. You'll flock together. You'll flock together. No matter what space you go into, you have flocked together. My mom told me that when I was real young. My mom said to me, she said, birds of a feather will flock together. She told me that at a very young age. I never forgot it. I never forgot it. I never forgot it. I never forgot it. And she was telling the truth. She was telling the truth. Mom said, birds of a feather will flock together. Birds of a feather will flock together. Birds of a feather will flock together. She never told. That was so true. And I have constantly observed that as I grew up. It was something that I really paid close attention to. I really did. As I grew up, I realized I was paying close attention to that. And it really factored in who I associated with. I'm not going to lie to you. It played a major role in my decision in who I associated with. I used it to help me evaluate who I wanted to associate with. I still do it today. I still do it today. I've been doing it for so long, I can't even remember when I really started doing it. I would guess it was somewhere around junior high school. If I really had to try to pinpoint back to a certain time frame, It had to be in junior high school. I remember when I got to junior high school, after my mother had got us out the projects in 1971, we got split up. I literally got split up from my childhood friends. Because we had grew up together. We had grew up with each other. And we were split up. They were still in the projects, and I was in a different neighborhood. And so when we went to junior high school, we were still hanging out with each other. We were still hanging out with each other, and we all were starting to go, get together our own different thinking. And I never forget the day that I went out for basketball in junior high school, and I started associating with these Caucasian girls that were on the basketball team. It was just 3 of them. And my associates, our friends from the projects, they didn't like that. They didn't care too much for that. But I thought about it. I knew they was right. They didn't care too much for me associating with someone outside of our environment and our community. And we had a conversation about it. We had a conversation face to face with each other. We had a knock down, drawn out conversation with each other about it. So I would say in junior high school is when I really had to start evaluating who I was going to associate with. And I had to decide to stand my ground on who I was going to choose to associate with. I was going to have the backbone to stand my ground and make my own decision of who I wanted to associate with, understand why I was associating with that person. So I didn't get angry when my friends or associates from the projects, my old neighborhood, got upset with me. I didn't get angry with them. I did get a little bent out of shape that they were trying to tell me what to do. That part I got past. But aside from that, I really didn't get angry with them. I made every effort to see it from their perspective. But see, I'm gonna get ready to get off of here. Y'all folks need to stop faking the funk. Stop faking the funk. Stop faking the funk. Stop faking the funk. Stop blaming those persons that you want to blame until you have the ability to point that finger back at yourself. Until you find a backbone to point that finger back at yourself. Don't put your weakness on display. Like DJ L Beats, he put his weak backbone on display. And y'all know good and darn well, I was not going to not stop in my tracks and address this man. I was just not going to let that happen. Because too often in our community, we bear witness to somebody who have a character flaws in our community, like Tariq Nasheed, Roland Martin, Candace Owens, Dr. Umar, and on, and including myself. I got character flaws, but I don't have character flaws. It's that I wake up and cause harm to other people, because I don't have the impact that these persons who have platforms. I barely have less than 500 people following me on most of these platforms. I barely have less than 500 people on Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't even think I have over 100. Instagram, I think I may have just under 400 or 500. YouTube is under 100. Twitter is a little bit over 1,000. But when I was opening my Twitter spaces, I barely would get people to come in my room. Even when I played an audio book. But these other folks who have the ability to have influence on multiple people, their character flaws is a beacon light. A beacon light. I don't have my character flaws is that are not impacting anyone else because I don't have that level of influence or impact or platform. What is that person named Alpha something? You folks spend all this time having these conversations and you never talk. I never hear anyone talk about gathering their number count. I mean, each and every one of us should have a number count. Each and every one of us should have a number count. And then all of those number counts have to be combined. So it's gonna take a while for any progress to be made. Because until you organize and know your number count, until you put in the hard work and buy land and buy houses and assets and build a network of businesses, community network, organization network, any type of network that you want to support your community, that should be organized. It's just a lot of lip sync to open a Twitter space and you have no directory to direct folks to. You have no business card to give out, to hand out to folks in the neighborhood. Folks, when you're out running errands and you just hand a business card, go back to the old time days, just hand a business card, say, check out this link when you have time. It's a directory for the community. No, folks want to spend all their time doing lip sync, doing talking. It's easy to talk. It's a lot harder to roll up those sleeves and take action. It's real easy to talk. It's real easy to talk, but it's a little bit harder to gather that number count. It's a little bit harder to put in the hard work to gather that number count and know your numbers. It's a little bit harder work than just talking. Number two, all this money that folks don't spend on events, Zoom calls, Zoom meetings, protests, marches. Why couldn't a little bit of that money have been put into a community fund? Why couldn't $5 of that money from each person that made a donation, why couldn't $5 of it could have went into a community fund? Because of selfishness. But these young people want to blame the boomers. What does the boomers and the elders have to do with you not having the ability to gather your numbers? How do you blame your elders and your boomers because you haven't gathered your number count? I would like to understand that part. See when you get down to the nitty gritty and you start peeling back those layers and you start peeling back those layers and you start peeling back those layers, then you realize that finger is going to be pointing back at you. If you're being honest. Once you really start peeling back those layers, that finger is going to be pointing back at you. Because it's no excuse. It's no excuse that all of us adults have not put together a number count by now. There's no excuse for that. I've been preaching since 2022. Gather your number count. I've been preaching it until I'm blue in the face. I I've been preaching it. I have built a WordPress website. I have built a GoDaddy website. I have built a Minds platform with over 60 groups. I have built a community on my Twitter profile. I have built a group on my Facebook. I didn't even know anything about this madness until COVID hit. I've done all of that since COVID hit. Because it just dawned on me when I really started engaging in this social media madness, this social media platform madness. I didn't start doing it until 2022. But I got online, I got on the internet to do my entrepreneur stuff in 2001. I was an entrepreneur from 2001 to 2016. 2001 to 2016, my main focus was entrepreneur. I want nowhere near politics. I was nowhere near it. Now, I did pay attention here and there because I did volunteer for Obama's campaign during that time frame. I did volunteer for John Kerry's campaign and literally went back to the very address that I was born at in the projects. 631 Kayfield Court. 631 Kayfield Court. Knocked on the door with my little clipboard, knocked on the door, asked the person to register to vote. It should have been it was a proud moment in my life until I realized I had lied. I had lied to myself and that person. That day when I knocked on that door, I said, Apple, this is a proud day in your life. You literally went back to the very address that you were born at. But then I had to be truthful with myself. I had lied. I had lied to myself, and I had lied to that person that I encouraged to register to vote. It's not something easy that you have to do. But you're gonna have, if you accept accountability and you know how to be honest, you'll get there. So I have to live with that on my conscience. I've had to live every day of my life since I came to that understanding that I had lied to that person. That's been on my conscience. I can't erase it, and I can't run from taking accountability. I can't run from taking accountability. So every day I wake up, I take accountability for that. So when folks finally start having the backbone to call out their little friends and their little cliques and their little associates, then the collective community is going to prosper. But until folks find the backbone, until they find the backbone and the courage to call out each other, they're not going to see any progress. That's one thing I can say about the elders that came before me. They set the right example. Did they get it all right? Probably not. But they made an effort to set the proper example for those that were coming behind them. Did they get it all right? No. But enough of them set the right example. You ain't going to have no perfect society. You're never going to have a perfect society. So as I was growing up, from the age of 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, up until 18, those adults and those persons around me, enough of them set the right example. Did all of them set the right example? No, they didn't. I had to make my own personal decision whether to follow the example of the person who was doing something the right way, or follow the person that was doing something the bad way. Well, I told you about my friends that I grew up with. In the 10th grade, I had to sit down with them and tell them that we had to part ways. Do you think that was a pleasant conversation for me? I'm in the 10th grade. I'm having to sit down with persons that I have grown up with. We have known each other since we were old enough to remember going to school in the first grade with each other. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade. But that day finally came. My mother did not put a gun in my head. My mother was not standing beside me when I made that decision to have that conversation with my friends. I had to have the responsibility to have that conversation with them. And I did. It wasn't a pleasant conversation. No, it wasn't. But I had to make a decision. I had to decide, do I love my mother more than I love my friends? And what we are doing and the devilishness that we are getting into. I had to make that conscious choice. I said, Aquilin, do you love your mother more than you love running with your friends? I said, Aquilin, no, I love my mother. I love my darn mother more than I love those friends. And so I made a decision to tell them we're going to part ways, and we parted ways. And I was able to finish high school. I don't think I would have finished high school if I had not parted ways. We were just going in different directions. I cared about my friends, and I still think about them to this day. It's hardly a day go by that I don't think about them. But I can't never forget that day I had that conversation with them and said goodbye. That we are going in different directions. It was hard, but I had to take responsibility for that. I couldn't point the finger at anyone. I couldn't point the finger at that friend over there named Barbara Williams, my other friend named Angela Jordan, and on and on. I said, Aqua, it would have been very simple. It would have been very simple for me to point the finger at Barbara Williams and say, you to blame for my life going bad. Oh no, Angela Jordan, you to blame for the mistakes that I made. It would have been very easy for me to do that. But I'm not wired that way. I'm not wired that way. So I'm just going to close with this. Folks, ain't nothing going to change. Ain't nothing going to change until you can look in that mirror and point that finger back at your own character. The tiniest little thing, the tiniest little flaws could defeat you. The tiniest little flaws could end up defeating you. And for those that have those large platforms and the large voice, if they're not setting a proper example, they're doing a lot of damage. But folks don't want to call them out. Folks don't want to call them out because they're rubbing elbows with them. They're in their little clique. They're in their little organization. They don't want to call them out. And until adults have the backbone to do that consistently and apply it the same across the board, you're going to always have a negative impact on the collective. You're going to always have proof of a negative impact on the collective. It's no getting around it. It's no escaping it. Unless each adult is holding each other to a standard, a high standard, the collective will always be negatively impacted. Until enough adults have the backbone to set that example, every day they get up, you ain't going to see no change. You're going to continue to see the community go downhill. It ain't going to change. You're gonna try to dress it up. You're going to try to make it all sound nice and pretty. But once you start peeling back those layers, that negative impact is going to be there for anyone to see. So each person has just got to look within themselves. Look within yourself every day you get up and look in that mirror. If you are looking in that mirror and you are satisfied with the person that's looking back at you, more than likely, over a period of time, collectively, it's going to have a positive impact. But unless each and every one of us are dedicated and committed to that, it's going to fall short. It's going to fall short. It's going to fall short. And you can perpetrate the fraud all you want. You can perpetrate the fraud, you can fake the funk, you can perpetrate the fraud, you can fake the funk, you can fake the funk, you can perpetrate the fraud, and you can perpetrate the fraud, and it's all gonna reveal itself eventually. So you ain't fooling nobody but yourself. You're not fooling no one but yourself. And so today, DJ L Beat and those adults in that room had to face that person they didn't want to face in the mirror. It was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. I knew it. I said, soon a day is going to come here real soon, folks. You ain't going to be able to recognize these human beings. You're not going to be able to recognize these human beings. You ain't going to be able to recognize these human beings. They're going to be reinvented themselves. I said, Aquilin, just stay tuned. Aquilin, just stay tuned. And about a few months, a whole year and a half done went by. I said, give it some time. Give it some time. Let some time pass. Let some time pass. And you're not going to be able to recognize them. They're just going to wake up one day and reinvent themselves and pretend like all those bad traits that they exhibited didn't happen. They're just going to wake up one day and they're gonna look around to blame someone. They're gonna look around and they're gonna have to find someone to blame. And then they're gonna reinvent themselves. They're just gonna wake up one day and they're gonna look around. They're gonna need to blame someone. Because they're not gonna want to blame themselves. They're not going to want to blame themselves. They're not gonna want to point that finger at themselves. So they gotta look around and find someone to blame. Because they're not going to want to blame themselves. They're just not going to do that. They don't have the backbone to do that. It's just a lot easier to point the finger and blame someone else. And so, it's a spectacle. It's a downright spectacle for me because each of us adults had well over 2 years to gather our number count. That's all we simply had to do. We simply had to organize and gather our number count. Each person dedicated to that every day you got up. Every day that you open a space on Clubhouse, every day you open a space on Fanbase, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all you had to do was ask persons to add their name to a community group, to a Facebook group, to a website, and gather the numbers, and gather the numbers, and gather the numbers. But you didn't do that. You were just having too much fun talking. Y'all folks were just having too much fun talking day after day, month after month. You were just having too much fun talking. Just had a lot of fun talking. So like I said, for all you folks who are preaching and trying to shame folks and fear-monger folks into going to vote, where's your number count? Where's your web page? Where's your database? Where's your email list? Where's your text list? Where's your Facebook group? Where's your Telegram group? Where's your Discord group? Where's your WhatsApp app group? Where is your number count? Because if you are telling another human being to go vote, you need to be showing me a number count. You need to be directing me to a website. You need to be directing me to a Facebook group, a database, a email list, something. Otherwise, you don't need to be telling me to go vote. If you can't show me that information, if that's not the next words out of your mouth, then the only thing I need to do is to tell you to have a nice day. Because you're not talking to me. If you're not showing me that proof that you have set that in place, if you cannot show me proof that you have put that in place, then you don't need to be telling me to go vote. You don't need to be telling anyone to go vote. If you cannot direct them to a database, a web page, a one-page web page, something where they can see proof of your number count and see proof that you have put information that can help them be informed citizen. To be informed citizen, I don't need to be listening to you. Do I? Do I? Do I need to be listening to you if you can't even show me proof of those two simple things? You cannot show me proof of a number count, if you can't show me a link that I can click on to gather information to be better informed, then I don't need to be listening to you, do I? Unless I'm brain dead. Unless I'm brain dead, I don't need to be listening to you tell me to go vote, do I? I don't think so. So for all you folks, all you adults who are running around here trying to make folks feel shame them into voting, saying your ancestors died so you can have the right to vote. You know your ancestors died so you had the right to vote. You know that you can't get reparations passed if you don't vote. Y'all brain dead people don't even understand how to do simple math. You don't even have the Republicans and the Asians and the Latinos and the Mexicans have control of 27 states. They have control of 27 out of 50 states. But y'all never talk about that. Why? Is it a secret? Is that a secret? While you still telling folks to go vote, you ain't told them one day, I ain't heard one of you persons say out of your mouth that the Republicans and the Asians and the Latinos and the Mexicans is a voting bloc. And they have control over 27 states. 27 out of 50. Why y'all not talking about that? Why y'all busy telling folks to go vote? Why you not telling them that the Republicans and the Asians and the Latinos and the Mexicans have already signed a contract to share power? They are a voting bloc. It's signed and delivered. They signed that in 2020. You're 4 years late. You're 4 years late of lying to people. You are 4 years late of lying to people. You are 4 years late of lying to people. So stop doing it. Just stop doing it. But you're not going to do it because some of you folks are benefiting from voting. Some of you have inside connections. You have an IOU. You can call in your IOU. You are rubbing elbows with the right people. You are good. So it benefits you to tell somebody else to go vote because it's impacting your life positively. But it's not impacting that person in the projects, the ghetto, and the hood. It's not impacting that person at the bottom positively. Because we got 50 years of data now. So it ain't like we just started voting. We got 50 whole years of data to look at. That's proof that voting has not helped Negro descendants. Can anyone deny that? Can anyone with a straight face deny that? Okay then, you don't need to be telling anyone to go vote until you gather that number count. Until you gather your economic security by buying land and houses and other assets. Number 3, until you build that network of community network, organization network, non-profit network, political network, and you need to have that organized. You need to be able to direct your persons in your community. Say, we got a network over here, a network with 200 are in this business. 200 persons or organizations are in this network, and they're there for the community. And you need to be able to direct folks to that link for them to click on. If you don't have those 3 things in place, if you're not working on getting those 3 things in place until they are in place, and that's going to take some hard work. It may take 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, who knows? Depends on how hard you work, I guess. But until it's put in place, you're at a disadvantage, and you should not be telling anyone to go vote. if you don't have the ability to push a button and activate your community, persons in your community, if you don't have that ability, why are you telling them to go vote? Why are you doing that? If you don't have the ability to push a button and activate those persons in that community anytime they are experiencing injustice,